Last weekend, we were very happy to see Alan Graham, the former host of the DX Party Line program on shortwave station HCJB in Quito, Ecuador, before it left shortwave. Alan was attending a conference in Orlando, Florida, and afterwards he came to Okeechobee to visit us. So, of course, I brought him into the Wavescan studio to have a little conversation. So today in Wavescan, I have a guest with us who I know many of you will remember because many of you have been shortwave listeners for many, many years, and you'll remember the iconic shortwave station HCJB in Quito, Ecuador. And if you're listening to Wavescan, that probably means you like DX programs, and their DX program was DX Party Line, which is probably the oldest DX program in existence. Well, it doesn't exist anymore, but it was probably the oldest one. Alan Graham, welcome to Okeechobee.
Thank you very much, Jeff. And the first time to be here at your facilities in Okeechobee. The last time we did an interview for Wavescan, we were in the offices and studios in Miami.
Yes, very good. Well, welcome to WRMI. I want to go back, if we can, to a lot of people will remember, of course, HCJB, one of the biggest stations on shortwave in the Americas and in the world, probably. But it all ended, except for one frequency, which we'll talk about. It all ended in what year was that?
2007 was when we stopped doing English broadcasting, and then I believe it was 2009 when we stopped doing any of the Spanish broadcasting. You didn't tell me we were going to do the interview, so I did not study for this test.
That's okay.
So I'm going by memory, which could be a little scary, but I think that's roughly the dates.
Now, the HCJB transmitters were actually in a place called p.1 outside of Quito, sort of a... Well, I don't know, is it a mountain or a valley? Or
right. It was about a half hour away. I think with the traffic, it's probably over an hour away now.
But it was right next to where they were going to build a new airport, right?
Correct. It was due south. I mean, it could not have been more improperly placed in terms of the plans for the new airport. Obviously, when that facility was built, which I think was like in the 40s, we had no idea that they would ever move the airport out there. But once they decided where the new airport was going to be located, we were like due south, right in the flight path for planes coming in.
And how tall were those towers? Tall enough to be a problem for airplanes, right?
I said I didn't study for this test. I know one was 120 meters tall because I climbed that one.
Wow.
Don't ask me why. But one of them was 120, and of course we had quite a few. But I don't think it was so much the height of the towers as it was the amount of RF energy that was coming off of there that could then affect navigation.
Okay. So you were going to have to move. At one time, wasn't there a thought of maybe moving them to somewhere else in Ecuador?
That's correct. A place called Saya. We only like places that have 4 letters in the names. And that is about 3 hours west of Guayaquil, which is where I currently live. And the plan was to move and establish the facility in Saya, in what is now the Santa Elena province. But then our board of directors made the decision not to move ahead and build that plant.
And at the time, I don't know if this was part of the decision, but a lot of people were thinking, oh, shortwave is dying. Not that many people listening to shortwave. And then there were also political problems in Ecuador, right?
Well... yeah, but that's nothing new. It's Latin America. I think part of it, yes, was based on what were the listening trends in shortwave. Another big part of it was the fact that the area that had been purchased, and which we technically still own, if you're interested, it is for sale, did not have easy access to any of the electricity and other services that were needed. So it was going to be a very significant investment. And as far as I know, the government did not provide any kind of indemnization for having moved us from the current site. Again, that's based on the knowledge I have. Higher ups within the organization may know better.
Because HCJB was and still is owned by Reach Beyond in the U.S., right?
No, technically no. HCJ, you didn't study for your test either. The operations within Ecuador were under what's called the World Radio Missionary Fellowship, which now is known as Reach Beyond. So the frequencies that were under the World Radio Missionary Fellowship for the Quito facility is now under an organization that is 100% Ecuadorian called Misión HCJB, La Voz de los Andes, Ecuador, and it only operates the FM frequency and the repeaters for several areas.
But we mentioned that there was one frequency that stayed on the air. It was a 6050 kilohertz,
correct.
Rather lower power transmitter. Was that in PIFO also?
We had always been broadcasting the 6050 from PIFO, and then when that was coming to an end in 2009, there was a group of German missionaries that formed an organization called Asociación Voz Andes Media, or the Voz Andes Media Association, because they felt it was necessary to maintain that frequency in order to have broadcasts in several indigenous languages, mostly Quechua, but there are some others also. So they raised the funds, mostly through donations from Germany, in order to move the transmitter from PIFO to the top of Mount Pichincha, right near the place where we have the FM transmitter on 89.3 for Quito and the Pichincha province, and also then to build the antenna and organized group to go up there and construct the antenna. I'd be glad to show you the pictures, Jeff. That won't work well on Wavescan itself, but it was actually a group of missionaries and some of the actual audience from the Quechua language, the Quechua people group that helped build that antenna up on Mount Pichincha.
Is it a directional antenna or omnidirectional, or do you know?
I told you I didn't study. But I really don't know what antenna they have up there. I can find out and let you know for an updated edition.
There we go. So, but it's a regional service, though,
That's
right?
correct.
Mm-hmm.
That's correct.
For the Andes area.
Correct.
And, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So, all right. So this was 2009?
2009.
That the shortwave shut down.
Correct.
Except
in
for
Spanish. And for the indigenous languages, I'm not sure how much, what was the time period, because I had been moved into another area, so was not involved in this. So I can't say exactly when the signal started broadcasting from Mount Pichincha, but I do know that the Voz Andes Media Association was organized in May 27th of 2009, and the reason I know that is because our FM station now in Guayaquil is under the Voz Andes Media Association in order to comply with broadcast law in Ecuador. Now, our frequencies are still under the World Radio Missionary Fellowship for the Guayas and the El Oro province. We're waiting for the frequency competition to open up so that we can then apply for those under the Voz Andes Media Association.
Now, is 6050 on the air?
The content of it, or the broadcast language, can change throughout the day. So there's Quechua programming, there's some in Ashwar, Kofan, and others, and then a lot of it is in Spanish during the day, and it's basically simulcasting our FM frequency from Quito.
That was Alan Graham of HCJB2 in Guayaquil, Ecuador.